As an introduction to Kdushin, we inquire as to what exactly is the effect of generating Kdushin. Is Kdushin the equivalent of a Kinyan mamon, in that just as one can acquire a Kinyan in the mamoness of an entity, so too does one acquire a Kinyan with respect to the ishus in a woman? Or is ishus a new type of chalos-effect which resides in the woman and renders her a prohibited entity? Is Kdushin Kinyan, or is Kdushin Isser? If Kdushin is Kinyan, the Isser results from the Kinyan. But if Kdushin is Isser, that's all there is. She's a Mukadeshis, she's an ishus, and that renders her what we call married. The Rambam, in the very first halacha of Hilchos Ishus, states, Kadam Matan Torah. Prior to Matan Torah, there was no erison, there was no Kdushin, but rather, if a man and a woman were to consent to marriage, he would bring her to his home, and he would live with her as husband and wife. This change, and she would become his wife. This change in her status takes place without the need of any Adam, but with the Rambam continues, with the advent of the giving of the Torah, if one wishes to marry a woman, it is necessary to be kind to her first. Use the words Kinyan. In the presence of witnesses, and by virtue of this Kinyan alone, she becomes his wife. Of course, you need chuppah. There's another stage, but that alone is enough. In other words, Kdushin Torah was only common law. There was only a form of common law marriage, but after Matan Torah, for the Yidden who are common law Matan Torah, there is no more common law. There is Kdushin, a formal process where she becomes your wife. It's from the Rambam's phraseology. The Rambam uses the word Kinyan for Kdushin. It would seem that his position is that the effect of Kdushin is Kinyan. But the Bnei Noach are still left with common law only. There is nothing else but common law. If they live together as man and wife, they're married. If they break up, if she walks away, he sends her away, they cease to be married. While they are living together, one Ben Noach may not, no other Ben Noach may live with her. It's considered one of the averes of Arias for Ben Noach. And the minute she leaves, it's all falls apart. It doesn't have a formal chalos. There's no effect. It's ongoing. More to this later. We now refer to the Gemara in Kdushin Daf Tes Amud Aleph, which contrasts a shtar Kdushin and a shtar Mecher. The Gemara had just learned out shtar can make Kdushin just like Kesef. So the Gemara says that there's a difficulty that because we find that a shtar Mecher, the seller is the maker of the shtar, and he writes in the shtar, I hereby sell my land to you, Sadai Mechura Lach, and the seller makes a shtar in front of Adam and then gives it to the buyer. Whereas in the case of Kdushin, it is the acquirer, the kaina, that is the maker. Because he writes, Hariyat Mukadeshesli, actually, the Morse cases where she was a katana, so the father writes, your daughter hereby shall become, the Makadish, the Baal writes, your daughter shall become mine as a wife. In other words, but in both cases, whether there's a father and she's a katana, whether she's a darling, it's to her, he's the maker, he's the kain, he's the maker. The Rashba, at that point, fails to see any difficulty. So the more has a difficulty. Why by mecher? So why by? So the more learn at the end. The more it's learns because we learn out from get, and by get, the Baal is the maker of the shtar gerish, and so since we learn out from get, so therefore we learn out that the Baal will be the maker of the shtar Kdushin. But the Rashba fails to see any difficulty. What does it matter that shtar Kdushin is different than shtar mecher. Yeah, we derive. I mean, I'm sorry, that wasn't the Gemara's teretz. That was what the Rajba said. We derive from shtar Kdushin from get, and I get the Baal makes he's the maker of the shtar get, the shtar gerish. So then it's that's the way it is. So it's not like mecher. Who cares, right? So what does it more find difficult than the Rashba answered? You know what the difficulty is? Because Kdushin is actually Kinyan. So if it differs with Mekach and Memkar, where in other words the maker of the shtar by mamon in sale in Kinyan is the seller, right? And so then why is the shtar Kdushin not she sells herself? So in a sense, she gives herself away. So she should be the maker of the shtar Kdushin. So we have the Rajba also saying that understanding that Kdushin is Kinyan. For more information, we turn to the matter of the requirement to gain a woman's consent. Do we need to gain the woman's consent in order for Kdushin to take place? This is a Gemara in Daf Beis on the Beis. Gemara says midaita in, shel midaita loy. By her consent, there is Kdushin. Against her will, without her consent, there is no Kdushin. She says no is no. We can't force Kdushin on, and if she doesn't want. Where do we know this from? So there actually exists. The Gemara doesn't say where they know this from. There actually exists two positions on the matter, and they're both found in Rashi. And actually, Rashi in Kdushin is different than Rashi in Yevomis, and it remains a stira. Actually, on the side of that Gemara, midaita im shel midaita loy. Actually, on the side of the Gemara in Kdushin, where Rashi says what he says in Kdushin, you have on the margin you have a note that you should look in Yevomis. But here it goes. In Kdushin, you find that it's on Mem Daled on the Aleph. Right. We find that Rashi says, how do you know that you need her consent, you need her das? Kdushin de midaito. Kdushin only works by her consent. Sometimes it says because you need das makna. Now, so in other words, just like in a sale, in a gift, matana, the grantor is the makna has to consent, and we can't do without the consent of the makna, because in a sale or a matana, because if there is no makna, so who's consenting? I mean, there's no makna. If the guy doesn't want, there's no makna, right? If he's giving something away and he doesn't want to give it away, so who's giving anything away, right? So I mean, that's already axiomatic that you don't need any svara for. So therefore, something by Kinyan, by Kdushin. Also, she's giving herself away. That's what the Rashi holds. There's a makna here, the ishus, the makna. So therefore, you need her consent. That's Kdushin, Daf Mendalad of an Aleph. It's Divrei HaMaskal, Kdushin de midaito. Rashi says, Be'inon das makna. Rashi Yevonis, Daf Yites, on the Beis, the Ramaskal, Kdushin de Alma, provides a pasuk. It says that it says v'yatzav v'hoisa, she shall leave when he's megarsha v'hoisa, she shall become married to another person. It's mashma that it's done by her consent. It can't v'hoisa wouldn't. V'hoisa is a non-transitive verb. It means and she shall be. So the only that she shall become. That's only becoming if she makes it become. These two disparate explanations in the source of the din of midaita constitutes a difference as to the view, as to the nature of the chalos-effect Kdushin. I mean, this is definitely a steer in Rashi. One of the Rashis is a change of heart from the other Rashi. We'll see that Rashi holds it's Kinyan, and that's a change of heart from. Well, and what? So it's actually we can sum it up by asking the following: in the process of accomplishing a Kdushin, does the Isha play any active role? Now, is there an area process where she is a doer, an Isa? Is there no aspect where she has actively does any making? We have a klal that the Isha cannot make the Kdushin. She can't say. He can't say. You're. She can't give the ring. She can't say you're Mekudesh to me. All that is learned out from a pasuk. But maybe there's an area prior to that making of the Kdushin that she does actually play an active role. Rashi and Kdushin holds there is such an area in the din of kiyikach, the kisikach. That's the drasha. It says kiyikach yeshisha the man of that there is no daf dalad on base. There is no her making the Kdushin he has to do the actual generation. So even though that pasuk disallows the woman an active part in the actual generation of Kdushin, but Rashi and Kdushin and Daf Mem Daled holds there's an area where she is the Isa, and what she does is a granting of herself. A person can't just. Torah's telling you the person can't just do not the Torah. It's a svara. Svara is that a person just can't plop, just can't say. It's not like a neder, a hektish. It's your property and you can't. So therefore, you can make hektish. It first has to be your property. Same thing over here. She has to first grant herself his rights to him, so that he has the ability to make the Kdushin, and then for that, that's a regular makna. So therefore, we need her consent, because if she doesn't agree to this, then there's no makna, right? Okay, so then now if she doesn't consent, there's no doing, there's no granting. If there's no ratzon and das, then there's no makna. And then Rashi and Yevonis, who brings a pasuk, holds that wouldn't be a problem. There is no makna here. He holds that it wouldn't be for the fact that the Yotzma Ha'isa, it's mashma, you can't do this against her will. You would be able to do this against her will, because she doesn't play any part. You don't need her to do anything. It just takes place in her, and every man has the ability to make this chalos. And if it wouldn't be for now, but the Torah does give her the ability to prevent it. It's not something that naturally she should have. It's not something that because we don't need any rights over her. She doesn't have to grant anything to the man. That's according to Rashi and Yevonis. So that the Torah you have to learn from the Torah that she was given an ability to block his making of Kdushin. The pasuk teaches us that the woman can always prevent Kdushin and strike down the actions of the Mekadosh by objecting. The pasuk gives her the ability to be ma'akev b'chalos. However, when she does give her consent, she has played no active role in the process. She hasn't been makna herself. All she does is withhold her potential block that she could have employed. This will illuminate Ron in Nidorim. Ron Nidorim is found in the discussion of the sugya of Bar Pada. It's in Nidorim Daf Lamed Amud Aleph. Without bringing up how it relates to our matter here, the Ron states that if there is a din of kiyikach v'loy kisikach, that she can't play an active role, then the Isha cannot be a tzad poil in the Kdushin making. Now, if she's totally passive, what role does her consent play? Since there is no need for any asiya on her part, in response, he says, by consenting to an offer Kdushin, he mevatelas daito. These are his words. He mevatelas daito umashve atzmo kedavar shel hefker. She's mevatel her objection, and she makes herself into a piece of hefker. What does it all mean? What is kedavar shel hefker? There's no makna, so what is there? What is she being mevatel? Cancel herself, ignore herself. What does it all mean? And answer is, she is withholding her ability to prevent Kdushin. She's mevatelas daita, means she gives up her ability to prevent. She plays only a passive role, according to this Ron, not like the Rashi in Kdushin. She only plays a passive role. So when she's mafka herself, she abandons her objections. She mevatelas daita. She subdues her objection and lets herself be miskadeshes, and she plays no part. She withholds any hindrance her dissenting opinion could have raised. And this then seems to be the a machlokas of Shainim. We present the underlying contention that is the basis of this machlokas, whether by Kdushin there ishus a makna or all she can do. And then if she doesn't agree, so then there's no makna, or all she can do is prevent and block the man's Kdushin. If Kdushin is the equivalent, here's the basis of it. If Kdushin is the equivalent of a Kinyan mamon, and that one acquires a Kinyan with respect to the ishus in a woman, then it's necessary for her to do a granting. She has to grant herself to the Makadish, just as any other makna otherwise would have the right and ability to make, just as any other makna. I mean, the makna has to grant the ability for the kind to be kind. Otherwise, one wouldn't have the right and ability to make Kdushin. However, if Kdushin is a new type of chalos-effect, it resides in the woman. It renders her a prohibited entity. But it's just a chalos-isser. Then, when one creates a chalos hektish on an object, then we would require a pasuk to say that you can't do it unless it's yours. Otherwise, we would have been able to hold that you can be makdish something belongs to someone else. It's you learn that from a pasuk Bavkama Samach Aleph Amid Beis Ish Kiyakdish as Beisai Kaddish Ma Beisai Bershusai I've called Bershusai. The only thing that you can be makdish is Beisai. It's your possessions, right? So we have the machlokes whether you need a pasuk and whether she has to be makdish herself before he can make Kdushin, or whether all she can do is prevent and block the Kdushin. Is a machlokes whether Kdushin is Kinyan or just chalos-effect. We are now going to go further and talk about other aspects of the difference whether Kdushin is Kinyan or chalos-effect. Machlokes Rishonim exists in the matter of a Ketana who on her own accepted someone's offer of Kdushin. It's Kdushin Daf Mem Vav Amud Aleph Ketana Sheniskadsha Shaloi Ladas Avia. She did this without her father's knowledge. Her father could have said yes. Could have said. The Gemara says that the father can tell her, "Oh, go accept Kdushin from someone." But if she did this without the knowledge of her father, then we have the halacha is we have to wait for him to give his opinion. The Gemara says if she goes off by herself and she doesn't have her father's authorization, no condition is going to take place at the time of her acceptance. But if later her father were to consent to the offer, it helps. Now Rashi and the Rajva hold that from that point and on, the Kdushin takes effect. When the father finds out about it, gives his opinion, says yes, that point and on, but previously not. The Ran and the Rush hold that once you have the father's permission, if he later agrees to her shidduch, it will take place retroactively. From the point at which she has accepted the cast of Kdushin, Rashi is a little bit problematic. How do Rashi actually says on Daf Medal and Omid Beis that the Kdushin takes place from Afreya when he finds out, but the Reb Shimon points out that that can't be. Rashi holds it's not Afreya, and the answer is that over there was talking about a case where they previously had made shidduchim with this man, and then her father, then she went on her own, and they made Kdushin privately in front of Adam, but without the father's open consent. So therefore, even though she's a katana, she needs the father's consent. There, Rashi says it works retroactively because it was really his consent was there all the time. The problem is, but the Reb Shimon says that in Rashi's own shita is that it does not work when there is no shidduchim. She just goes off and finds someone that they had no previous contact with. Then it only works from the time when the father consents, but not earlier. Now, the reason why the Reb Shimon says that you see from Rashi that it doesn't help retroactively is because of Daf Mem Vav Amud Aleph. Rashi says that before that she could repudiate before the father finds out. She could repudiate her acceptance of this offer of Kdushin. Once the father finds out and says yes, she cannot. The question is, if it works on Afreya, once the father finds out that and accepts and consents, then it took place retroactively, so that it happened before, and the chalos then retroactively take place before she decided to object. What does her objection mean? Anything? The answer is Rashi must hold that actually it's going to take place from the point at which the father consents. So therefore, if she objected previous to the father, it's mavatal her making of her accepting the Kdushin before the father consented. And the fact that Rashi previously had said that it helps the Mafreya is only because there was shidduchim done beforehand. Now, the problem is, the Ran and the Rush say that it takes place in Mafreya. Now, that's a problem because we hold Yish Lo Midash Lo Have Yish. Because we're saying that the Kdushin takes place and takes effect, and the Ran and the Rush takes effect even before the father had any knowledge. This is tantamount to declaring that the din is like Rava, that Yish Lo Midash Lo Have Yish, and we know that the din is like Abaya, not like Rava. In the opinion of Rava, a desire or an intention that a person would probably have if he had been in the know of the situation is as good in law as if it were his actual will. This is the case by Aveda. An Aveda that has no simon. The guy loses it, he doesn't know that he lost it yet, and the finder finds it before the owner realized that he had it lost. So therefore, it's the owner was not actually miyayish, but it doesn't have a simon, so he's never going to be able to get it back. So the question is, so had he known about it, most probably would have been miyayish. So Rava says this is potentially there's a ishus, so that's good enough. Abaya says no, we potentially yish will not be considered a real yish. And what happens is that the finder found it then before the guy committed a real yish, and hence he's already chayiv in chiyav hashava. So therefore, when the owner does realize that he lost it and it doesn't have a sentiment, and he actually is miyayish, it doesn't help, because if you found an aveda before yish, you're chayiv in hashava forever, and you can't keep it. So the question is, so we have here a machlokes whether potential consent, potential idea, a potential will, is considered a person's will. A Rava says it is. Abai says it's not. And the halacha is like Abai that it is not. So then what? How does it help to when the father finds out about the Kdushin? Then how does it help Mafreya retroactively? Because we would be then saying that it potentially that was his will, and before he knew, and therefore the Kdushin takes place from the time she made the Kdushin Mafreya. That would be the view of Rava. That's not the view of Rabbi. We paskin like a Rabbi. The halacha is like a Rabbi. That a potential will is not a will. The answer is that the Ran is really following his understanding of what the role of the making of Kdushin is, what Kdushin actually is. According to Ran's view, there is no makna in Kdushin. He makes the chalos-effect of making Isser in her, prohibiting it to the whole world, and all the consent of the isha or the father in the case of a katana is only that to block that Kdushin. So then we can say that we don't need a true will. And even Abai is going to concur when the father finds out and agrees to the offer according to the Ron. We're able to say that it was always his mind. If you need a person's will to generate something, so potentially a potential will is not going to generate anything according to Abai. But if you need his will because it's just a condition, otherwise it would block it. But it's not that he generates anything with his will. Then if it's a potential will, it was always his will. But it's just that it was always his mind. You see that from how it works out at the end. He agrees to the Kdushin. Since it was always his mind, so we can say a potential will constitutes a will, but we're not saying that it generates anything. Even a Abai is going to be money. However, according to Rashi, Rashi holds it's necessary for her to be makna, to do a granting of herself. And in case by Katana the father does the granting, so then we would have to say, if in order for it to work retroactively, we would have to say a potential will generates the hakno at the point of when she was accepted the petition, which according to Abai is not true. It can't generate, and we paskin in halachas like Abai. So therefore, again, this is another instance where the chakira of whether Kdushin is Kinyan or is it just a chalos-effect comes to fore and creates a difference in din. And perhaps everybody goes around and makes a piece of Torah. Rashi says, Isha Niknish B'shlosh Drachim in the first mission of Kdushin. Rashi points out, Isha Niknish L'baylo, to her husband. And who else? What's the point of Rashi's being put, mentioning to her husband by these three methods? Could be that the idea that Rashi would be attempting to convey is that Kinyan here, Aisha Niknas, well, according to those shittas that hold that it's only chalos-effect, so Niknas is a metaphor, right? And Rashi's trying to tell you it's not a metaphor. It's not a figure of speech, but rather Kdushin results in true Kinyan, and it's a Kinyan of ishus. It's not a Kinyan of mamon. If Kdushin was just a chalos-effect, calling it Kinyan would just be a metaphor. It works in the same sense as a Kinyan does, but then you can't say she's niknas lebayla. She's niknas. The chalos takes effect, but lebayla to the chalos has got nothing to do with a Kinyan, so it's not to anything, to anybody. So therefore, and all she does is she becomes usher and to the rest of the world. Rashi then, by adding lebayla, informs us that there's a true Kinyan achieved. Therefore, she's acquired, in a sense, by her husband. Live by law. But according to Rashi, if since a potential will is not equivalent to an actual will, you cannot count the father's ultimate consent as being able to allow the Kdushin to take place with Mafreya. That would be. There's more. There are difficulties with the idea that Kdushin is Kinyan. But this is beyond the scope of this little shir. Let me just point out a couple of difficulties. The first argument against the idea comes from Kdushin Daf Beis on Beis, that because the Gemara says over there, the Kdushin making the lashon Kdushin is that he answers her to all the world as if she would be a piece of hektish. It would seem that it's chalos-effect, not a chalos Kinyan. Another problem would be the din of mekadosh chutz miploim. It's difficult. It's a difficulty to the those that hold the Kdushin is Kinyan. Now, mekadosh chutz miploim means one who would make a Kdushin but wishes to exclude someone in particular from the Kdushin. In the Gemara in Gittin Daf Pei Beis, we find that Reb Lezer holds that one can make a gerushin chutz miploim, and she's not megureshes in respect to that chutz guy. She's still an ishus in regard to her. And the Chum disagree, and then the Gemara says over there that the same machlokes will exist in Kdushin, because we have this hakish v'yotzav v'hoiso. Now, how's it possible to generate a Kdushin that excludes anyone? In other words, according to, if you hold like Reb Lezer that it works, that means she's not mekudeshes in regard to that person who you excluded. If she's knuya, if it's a Kinyan, it says she's knuya. So once she's knuya, how could she not be knuya? To everybody else, she's knuya, because the result of the Kinyan is the Isser. So if she's knuya to the rest of the world, and they're also turned, so how can she not be knuya? How can you split up the union of knuya? Right? If she's his, and then respect to everyone, so everyone is also to her. And so how are we going to? But that's another shir. There's there might be other problems, but we just brought up a couple. But here we clearly see from Rashi and Kdushin, and from the Rashi's, the Rishonim's, Rashi and those Rishonim that agree with that when the father finds out about the Kdushin of the Ketana, she is not Mekudeshes retroactively. Why not? The answer is because there's an act of will necessary. The will has to actively generate Kdushin. The will of the Isha side, which in the case of the father's will, has to generate a pula and we possibly like a baya that a potential will can't generate anything.